The Hisense U7K finally arrived at my doorstep. After covering the U6K, which turned out to be a minor upgrade over last year's U6H model, I couldn't wait to dive into the U7K. You see, unlike the U6K, which was meant to be a new mini LED TV redesign here, in South Africa it was just an ordinary LED TV. Hisense kept the big upgrade for the U7K, and it actually feels like a substantial jump over last year's U7H model. We're getting mini LED tech here with an overclocked panel that can run at 144Hz. It also has a large focus on gaming with an FPS counter and a gaming hub overlay. If anything, this TV has been made for gamers in mind. Of course, I need to clear the air first. This isn't the same Hisense U7K model that you can find in the US. While it bears similar specs, there are a number of differences in this local model which sets it apart. But I have to admit that Hisense has nudged closer than ever before to its international standard. For example, the local Hisense U7K model features 384 dimming zones across the 65-inch TV. This is exactly the same as the 384 dimming zones found on the United States version. I was extremely surprised to see this. If there's one thing we've missed out on across our models, our local dimmings have always been cut down. So again, it is a big win for local consumers. A big difference, on the other hand, between the US model and the local model is the panel technology. The Hisense U7K in South Africa makes use of an IPS panel. There are a few advantages for this. For example, it has a higher refresh rate, lower input lag, and a much better viewing angle than a VA panel. However, the drawback to this is that IPS panels struggle with increased blooming when combined with mini LEDs. This is due to the poor contrast ratio on these panels. Don't get me wrong, VA panels also suffer from blooming, but IPS has a bit more pronounced blooming. Blooming also relies on algorithms to control the dimming zones in order to reduce the clouding around bright objects, so it is all dependent on how well Hisense has designed the TV to tackle this blooming. I will get more into the technical stuff later on. Let's run through the TV first. First off, the Hisense U7K comes in 55, 65, 75 and 85-inch models. It costs 15,999, 21,999, 29,999, and the 85-inch costs 39,999 Rand. These price points also mean that the Hisense U7K is the most affordable mini LED TV on the South African market, which is a big win for the brand. Unboxing the TV was pretty much the same as unboxing any TV. The U7K includes a one-leg layout here in South Africa, meaning you can't install the TV legs in the middle of the panel like the US version. The legs feature a flat rectangle design and look super premium. They are screwed into the base of the TV and include two rubber pads underneath them to keep them in place. There are also two clips for cable management found on the leg stands. The legs are 115 centimeters apart, so keep that in mind for your soundbar. They are also 31 centimeters long and should fit on most TV stands. The TV itself sits 8 centimeters off the surface, and most soundbars shouldn't cover the display. However, my Samsung QN990B didn't fit between the legs of the TV at all. There's also very little wobble on the TV, which is great to see. Keep in mind that these dimensions are for the 65-inch model. The TV design is quite refreshing if you ask me. It looked beautiful on my TV stand and the flat legs are a nice touch. The borders are only 1 centimeter thick and the general TV thickness reached 7.4 centimeters at its thickest portion. This is near the bottom side of the TV at the back. It is larger here to house all the tech while also storing the built-in subwoofer. On the right, there's the figure 8 power port, and the left hand side of the TV houses all the ports. You'll find two HDMI 2.1 ports rated at 4K 144Hz and two standard HDMI 2.0 ports. There's an AV in port, headphone jack, service port, and a USB Type A port rated at 5 volts. There's also a digital audio out port, Ethernet port, and another USB port on the back side facing outwards, in case you need those ports. Generally speaking, the Hisense U7K does look great. The backside is especially nice to look at thanks to its included subwoofer. The metallic rings, which are actually just plastic, look super clean, even if you're never going to see them. Of course, our Hisense U7K runs Vida here in the region, and the operating system finally feels fully complete now thanks to the included Disney Plus app. I need to mention before getting into anything else that our Disney Plus app on Vida only runs at 1080p, features no Dolby Vision or HDR support, and has no surround sound codec support at all.
Oh no!
It is pretty sad, but hopefully it does improve over time. Regardless, Vida does everything now and it feels right. Sure, the freedom to install your own apps isn't a thing here, but if you're not worried about that, Vida is now the most complete TV operating system around. It is nice to finally say that. Getting around the TV is as expected, simple and snappy. The included remote on the TV isn't anything different to every other Hisense TV around, but it works. You also don't have to sign up for a Vida account or sign into one to operate the TV. You can just jump straight into your apps and gaming if you're not in the mood. Jumping into the settings, the Hisense U7K is familiar. You can tweak everything you need, and I jumped right into the settings. Due to the IPS and the mini LED panel combination, you would want to make things look a bit warmer. Mini LEDs tend to give TVs a sort of blue glow, so I fixed that with a warm 2 temperature setting. I also calibrated the TV for both gaming and entertainment. Here are the settings I used in case you're looking for some guidance. The Hisense U7K includes 2 new settings, dark detail and gradient. I recommend turning both of them off if you don't want to lose the filmmaker's quality intended for your content. Gradient is especially strange. In some instances, it caused the backgrounds to smooth out and I lost details on bricks and trees in the background. When it comes to gaming, I was surprised to see how versatile the Hisense U7K was across PC settings. For example, you can select your color gamut and choose from DCI-P3, Adobe RGB, BT709 and BT2020. You can also select auto and native if you want to. I seldom review TVs with this level of freedom when it comes to the color gamut toggles. There's also dynamic tone mapping available, which is great for HDR gaming across certain hardware. The basic TV settings I use for gaming are as follows. Keep in mind that these often change depending on the situation, and I'll explain why in a bit. One of the big features on the Hisense U7K is its high refresh rate mode. It allows the TV to run from 120Hz to 144Hz and even 240Hz. I had issues getting 4K 144Hz working on my PC, but from what I know, it is a common bug with Nvidia GPUs. AMD GPUs on the other hand don't have this issue. I was, however, able to get 1440p 144Hz working and 1080p 240Hz working. I was taken back a little how well this feature worked. You need a PC of course, but it works very well. I found that simply changing the settings under display on Windows 11 triggered the high refresh rate modes to appear in advanced graphics. I could then switch between 144Hz at 1440p and 240Hz at 1080p. The settings also kept the local dimming enabled at the same time, which I was expecting to get disabled. There's also a really cool game menu that is easily accessible by pressing one button on the control. This brought up an overlay that showed the current frame rate, HDR output, and whether or not VRR was enabled. I could also toggle an FPS counter that appeared on the screen, change the brightness on and off, and turn on dark detail. Dark detail is a setting for competitive gaming. My only issue is that the FPS counter overlay was inconsistent and didn't show all the time. The menu would say it was enabled, but it wasn't on the screen at all. So in terms of PC gaming on the Hisense U7K, it really hits it out of the park. Console gaming is also great. I didn't have the FPS counter issue on the PS5. It showed the entire time. Input lag on 4K 60Hz content was measured at 11 milliseconds and 4K 120Hz content was measured at 3.4 milliseconds. It is pretty impressive. While the Hisense U7K is almost perfect for gaming, I did have a few issues. The TV was very dark and dull with automatic tone mapping disabled. I had to keep it enabled the entire time. It would also disable itself when I closed the game, had VRR enabled, and changed the refresh rate on PC. This meant I constantly had to go back and forth into the settings to enable it. If your TV is looking much darker than it should, just make sure that this setting is enabled. VRR also gave me mixed results with local dimming. When I had the feature enabled on PS5, local dimming was turned on but stuck on high. It was obviously enabled and I could see the difference in the panel brightness. However, when I enabled FreeSync on the TV settings, it disabled local dimming. So VRR kept it stuck on high when I enabled it on the PS5, but FreeSync settings on the TV turned it off. Even when the game mode showed VRR was on when FreeSync was disabled, local dimming worked. I was incredibly confused how it all worked. If I were you, I would stick to using VRR only on the console end and leave the FreeSync setting on the TV alone if you want local dimming enabled at the same time. FreeSync seems to just not know what it wants to do at this point. But the general picture quality on the Hisense U7K is rather superb, be it gaming or watching TV. When calibrated and tweaked, it looks wonderful. The specular highlights across HDR content pop, and pumping up the saturation a bit made things look even better. It takes time to get this TV where it needs to be. Don't accept it as it is when it comes out the box. Be sure to go in and calibrate it. The TV also gets decently bright thanks to the mini LEDs. I measured 510 nits of peak brightness in a 100% window. It is punchy and vibrant. Local dimming, of course, is a hit or miss depending on the content you're watching and the games you're playing. You'll definitely notice bloom if you're in a dark room, but the TV does a great job reducing this as much as possible. It is what it is. Blooming is just part of life now. Unless you go in the OLED route, blooming is just part of the package. But the Hisense U7K does a great job keeping blooming down. Viewing angles on the Hisense U7K are also better than expected. The IPS panel does a great job here, but you have to consider the increased blooming when viewing the TV from any angle. So in one way it is great, but if you're watching dark content, watching the TV from the side is not the best place to sit. You can definitely see the local bloom here from any direction that isn't straight in front of the TV. It is a good and a bad thing here. Great viewing angles, but a lot of bloom from the side. The panel is also not very reflective, which is great news for bright rooms. It is likely one of the best finishes I have seen on a display to date, making it incredibly versatile for all setups. You can see in this clip here that I had all the curtains open and the sun was coming through the window, and it does a great job diminishing the reflection. As for the sound, it is quite decent for a TV. The included subwoofer definitely gives the sound a bit of a kick here, but it all still sounds one-dimensional. You'll definitely want to upgrade this to a bigger sound system as soon as possible. Even the bass boost just doesn't seem to affect the sound quality overall. Okay, so honestly, I went into the Hisense U7K review not expecting much. After the minor upgrade of the U6K, I expected the same thing here, but I'm pretty impressed with what Hisense has done. It is a very good TV. Its gaming features are especially a selling point here. I am a little annoyed by the local dimming and the VRR confusion, considering these were issues back in 2018 and shouldn't be an issue now. Almost every TV brand has found a way around this, so Hisense needs to follow suit. Things shouldn't be this confusing. The disabling of automatic tone mapping is also incredibly frustrating. But for its asking price, this TV far exceeds what I expected. It does almost everything pretty well. It isn't a master of anything, don't get me wrong, but if you're looking for a robust TV, this should be up there on that list. I think most importantly, we need to commend Hisense for finally delivering a product that almost matches the international standard. I just can't wait to see where we go from here. So those are my thoughts on the Hisense U7K. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below. I do have another review of the Hisense U8K coming up soon, which is the Mini LED Pro model. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that content. Also be sure to check out the channel for the Hisense U6K review if you're in the market for that model. Until next time, farewell.